Hello and welcome to my best books of 2020 video. Don't worry about the length of the video because my list of the best books of 2020 is actually not that long. But that is partly due to the fact that I've read 53 books in the last year, which is more than I read the year before that. But compared to normal booktube standards, it is a little bit below what I see other people read on this platform. I'm actually pretty proud of myself. And my cat is lying on its back and facing its tummy up the air, and it looks pretty cute, and I wish I could show you, but I don't want to mess up the setting. You're so cute. So out of the 53 books that I've read this year, I've only rated 7 a 5-star, which is pretty okay in my opinion. The thing is, the only ones that I really want to touch on in this video are 3 books. Maybe a 4th, but not really. The other 4 stars that I have on my list there are really not surprising. They are just comfort reads for me. I think 2 of them are from Neil Gaiman. One is Harry Potter, and then I have the one that I was thinking about including, but I now decided to exclude, which is The Two Towers, The Lord of the Rings second book, which I, by the way, forgot to mention in my last wrap-up, because it was just so, I don't know, I just listened so casually to it when I was listening to the audiobook. And it completely slipped my mind. I was actually listening to the first part, I think 2 years ago, and it is lengthy, but the narration of the audiobook narrator was so enticing. Like, I was just caught up in the story. I was not thinking about anything else. I loved it. So let's not talk about this too much, because I would like to now talk about books that I've rated 5 stars and that are more interesting than casual staples like Harry Potter. Okay, I actually want to start with the 4-star book because it is apparently the lowest rated on that list, but it is not really, and I will tell you why. Because my 4-star book that I want to mention is Tokyo Ghoul. I got this one as a present from the sister of my best friend for my birthday, which I really didn't expect. But this book is so precious to me right now, because I feel like it's the only thing that keeps me sane. After I read this one, I went straight to my bookstore and I bought the 3 following parts. Then I put them on my shelf and I left them there until January. And then on the 2nd, I decided that I didn't have the mental capacity to read that much, but I still wanted to read. So I decided to maybe continue this series because it was very, intriguing and fun. And so I started reading those, and I read a book a day. And now I'm out of books. And because of my self-proclaimed rule to only buy a book once I've read 3 books, I cannot go and just simply buy another book. I mean, I could, because I've technically read 3 books, like the 3 parts that come after the first part. But then I would be out of books again very quickly. But because I feel like I'm addicted now to a series, which rarely happens, I wanted to mention this one. It is a series whose anime version got hyped when I was 18. So about, what time is this? I'm old. 7 years ago? Something like that. And maybe 6 years ago. 6 to 7 years ago. And I vividly remember people talking about it emotionally, admiringly, and I just completely missed out on the hype. This series is action-packed, it is fun, it is violent, but in all the right places, If you have never read that manga and you're into mangas, I don't believe you, first of all. But second of all, try it. try it. Go get yourself the first part. I don't think that, like, that cost me around €8. So if you have the money, you can go and check out the first part. Only the first part. And if you get hooked, and even if you don't want to pay that money, I mean, there's something called a library. I'm pretty sure they have it. It's so famous. Okay, so let's talk about the other books that I've read. Which is actually, I don't want to talk about two of them too much, because I think I have talked about them a lot in other videos. So one is The Caste. I've just recently talked about it, by Isabel Wilkerson. And the other one is Arnhild Lauveng's Morgen bin ich ein Löwe. Oh, what is it called in English? I always forget that. A Road Back from Schizophrenia, a memoir. That's the English title. Which do I want to start with? I don't know. I've talked about both of them. This one I've talked about more recently, so I think I'm just gonna like a little bit sum up my thoughts. This is an anti-racist book. I believe, in my opinion, the best one that I have read so far. And I think I have read around 4. With this included. So this is the best one out of 4 books that I've read about this topic. There's still some on my bookshelf that I want to read, so maybe that ranking would change, but for now this is the best one that I've read. Did I want to say anything else about this? Let's read what it says on Goodreads. And it says, in this book, Isabel Wilkerson gives us a portrait of an unseen phenomenon in America as she explores through an immersive, deeply researched narrative and stories about real people, how America today and throughout its history has been shaped by a hidden caste system, a rigid hierarchy of human rankings. Honestly, I mean, I agree with everything except for the unseen phenomenon. A portrait of an unseen phenomenon. Like, how is racism an unseen phenomenon? I don't get that. Maybe I just got it wrong and this is not an anti-racist book, although it appeared to me as if it was. So it uses a lot of research to explain things and to mark down points, which I personally like. I like when I can understand where people get their conclusions from. I like that traceability. I think she doesn't do it everywhere, if I can remember correctly, but at least like the main studies she mentions. But hi, do you want to have a sip of my chai latte? But I'm a little bit confused now as how this book is perceived in the broader society. Because to me it was clear that it was about race. Whether it was not always black race, because she also like she makes a lot of comparisons. I don't know, you decide what you make out from the book, but that's one of the best books that I read this year, and I'm going to lay it aside now. I've already talked about it enough, I think. So my third book that I want to talk about, but the second book that has 5 stars, is I forgot the English title. It's so ridiculous. How can I not remember a simple title? It's because it's studying season. Like, book titles, what are those? I think it was My Way Out of Schizophrenia, a memoir. And the summary of this says, or not the summary, but you know, the premise. It's not the premise. What is it, like the arc? Oh. I think I've heard that sometimes in some booktube videos, the arc. But it's not a like novel. It doesn't have an arc. It has it's kind of a, what is it called? Patient story? A case study. It is more of a case study than a story with like a plot or a novel that has a beginning and an end. So I don't think that arc is the right thing to say here, so I'm just gonna read you what is written on Goodreads. For 10 years, Lauveng names, I'm so sorry, suffered as a schizophrenic. In these pages, she illuminates her battles with the disease and its symptoms. Today, however, she calls herself a former schizophrenic, has stopped taking medication for the illness, and works as a clinical psychologist. This book I found to be very hopeful, and it was informative as well. And by no means I do know a lot about schizophrenia. I don't. But I have a basic and rudimentary understanding of the disorder or disease, whatever you want to call it. And I think that I learned so much. Not only about schizophrenia and its symptoms and like things like that, but a lot of it was about how you were treated in institutions that are actually supposed to take care of you, how you were treated also in society when your reality doesn't match the reality of others. Sometimes it was heartwarming to see how people were able to help or to provide some sort of connection with a human that was so socially deprived, but also very, I want to say, disappointing how much you're not perceived as someone with normal desires, normal needs, also normal, kind of what I have to think about is also normal pain tolerance, normal need to meet people, normal dignity. And this book helped me to understand perspectives of people with schizophrenia a lot better. And although this is Arnhild Lauveng's personal experience, and it's very subjective, and no human will experience the same thing exactly the same way, it was still good to have like her thoughts written down to gain some traceability for the actions that often seem so illogical for people that are functioning in like our societal standards. Oh my god. The camera turned itself off and I got so scared that I threw my whole chai latte on my legs and now it's cold. And the final book that was a real 5 out of 5 stars for me is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. She also wrote The Hate You Give. Amazing, fantastic books. I cannot tell you of one other young adult book that I have read so enthusiastically. Maybe when I was a young adult myself. I may have. But I mean compared to books of last year. And I generally don't read that much young adult, so the comparison may be not the best one. Because there are phenomenal pieces out there, I'm sure of it. I just generally don't gravitate towards them. But this one is a special diamond, and let me tell you why. It has everything and more that you could wish for. Okay, so what happened here was that I forgot to press play when my camera stopped filming. So I will have to film this part again and hopefully be able to explain my feelings about the book that I'm talking right now in under 2 minutes, because I tend to talk a lot. So let's continue talking about On the Come Up. It discusses very socially important topics like racism, drug addictions, having no money, growing up, family constellations. So those are all topics being touched on this book, with the additional factor of it being hip-hop centered and therefore extra cool. Extra modern and timely and intriguing, and I couldn't recommend it enough. The characters are three-dimensional, they all have personalities, they interact with each other very believably. It can be both heartwarming and infuriating. It makes you feel something. And I love feeling something when I read something. If I haven't mentioned it before, it plays in the same universe as The Hate You Give, and for everyone who is already familiar with the stories and wants to read everything else that Angie Thomas is writing, she's bringing out a new book in about 2 weeks, which is the prequel to The Hate You Give, telling the story of Star's father. I would like to end the video here. I know it's been a mess, and I can't really change it right now anymore. You know, sometimes you film something and then after, in editing, you discover that everything you said didn't make any sense. And then you have to edit it down, because you don't have any extra time to spend on refilming, because you're in your study period. Yeah, I know, that happens sometimes. But anyway, I've got nothing left to say, so bye.